how things have changed since then, but I began by asking him to explain how the war in Afghanistan is an example of how the U.S. is, in his mind, a leading terrorist state.
So on October 12th, I guess, a couple of days after the bombing started, Bush publicly announced to the Afghan people that we will continue to bomb you unless your leadership turns over to us people who we suspect of carrying out crimes, although we refuse to give you any evidence, probably because they don't have any, and we dismiss without comment the offers of your leadership for negotiations about extradition. Notice that that's a textbook illustration of international terrorism. That is, by the U.S. official definition, that is the use of the threat of force or violence, in this case extreme violence, to attain political ends through intimidation and fear and so on. That's the official definition. This is a textbook illustration of it. 3 weeks later, by the end of October, the war aims had changed. They were first announced, as far as I can find out, by the British Defense Minister, Sir Admiral Boyce. Admiral Boyce, the British Defense Minister. He informed the Afghan population that we will continue to bomb you until you change your leadership. Well, that's an even more dramatic illustration of international terrorism, if not aggression. And that was the goal that was followed. This had nothing to do with finding the criminals and bringing them to justice. This is a totally different issue.
If the United States is a leading terrorist state, if, as you say, Britain is another example of a terrorist state, how do you distinguish between that kind of what you describe as terrorism and what they are saying, Osama bin Laden, who's a terrorist? Make the distinction.
It's very simple. If they do it, it's terrorism. If we do it, it's counterterrorism. That's a historical universal. You go back to Nazi propaganda, say. Most extreme mass murderers ever. If you look at Nazi propaganda, it's exactly what they said. They said they are defending the populations and the legitimate governments of Europe, like Vichy, from the terrorist partisans who are directed from London. Okay, that's the basic propaganda line. And like all propaganda, no matter how vulgar, it has an element of truth. The partisans did carry out terror. They were directed from London. The Vichy government is about as legitimate as half the governments the U.S. has installed around the world and supports. So yes, there was a minor element of truth to it. And that's the way it works. If somebody else carries it out, it's terror. If we carry it out, it's counter-terror. I think perhaps one of the most dramatic examples right at this moment is a place where I just was a couple of weeks ago, southeastern Turkey. Southeastern Turkey is the site of some of the worst terrorist atrocities of the 1990s. This is the Kurds.
Attacks on the Kurds.
Attacks on the Kurds. Left a couple of million refugees. Much of the countryside devastated. Tens of thousands of people killed. Every imaginable barbaric form of torture you can dream of. It's all well documented in Human Rights Watch reports and so on. How did they do it? Well, they did it with a huge flow of U.S. arms, which peaked in 1997, in the single year 1997. In that 1 year, the arms transfers to Turkey from the United States were higher than the entire Cold War period, up until the insurgency started, the counterinsurgency started. But look at the way it's treated. Look at the way it's treated. This massive international terrorism, run and supported by the United States, is considered a great triumph of counterterrorism. So if you read the State Department reports on terror, they praise Turkey for its success in showing how to counter terror. You read a front page article in the New York Times, praises Turkey for showing how to deal with terror. Turkey was selected as the country to provide the forces for what they call the International Force for Afghanistan. Actually, it's for Kabul alone. It's Turkey that's being offered, is being paid by the United States extensively to carry out the repression of terror, thanks to their achievements in countering terror, namely by carrying out some of the worst terror of the 1990s, massive ethnic cleansing and atrocities, with U.S. support. Now, this is a real achievement of the intellectual culture to be able to do this. But it illustrates very well the answer to your question, terror and counter-terror. If some enemy state did this, I mean, we'd be, not just outraged, we'd be bombing them.